introduction, and thank you, Professor Hodakevich, for putting this all together. Good afternoon. I'm Andrew Georgeff, and I'm here to talk to you about how geography has affected the Ukrainian invasion. So before we kick this off, I would like to go over the basic geography and major features of Ukraine. In the northwest, we have the Pripyat marshes. In the far west, we have the Carpathian Mountains. In the south, we have the coastal region, as well as the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea. In the east, we have extremely arable land. It used to be known as the breadbasket of Europe. Unfortunately, as of now, it has been taken over by the Russian military. The farms have been destroyed, and the fields have been mined. In the north, we have a forested region, as well as the capital of Kyiv. Some major features I would like to go over are the Dnieper River that bisects Ukraine from north to south, the many streams and smaller rivers in the east that have set the battle lines of the Ukrainian invasion. And to the south, the basis of this case study, the peninsula of Crimea, which has two land bridges known as the Armyansk and the Changar in the east and west, respectively. A before and after shot. Currently, Russia occupies roughly 20% of Ukraine, and it seems that Russia is losing land daily. So how was the Russian military in the south able to break out of Crimea when there are two noticeable choke points that could be defended by the Ukrainian defenses? It comes down to two things: irregular flanking and communication clutter. Flanking is when you maneuver around an enemy to the side or behind to get an optimal firing solution and bypass any frontal defenses. As you can see on the right, the red reserve units are doing a classic pincer flank on the blue units, and the blue reserve is reinforcing their frontal assault. Flanking is done through either bipedal locomotion or a land vehicle, usually some sort of ground maneuver. Irregular flanking, on the other hand, is everything else. This could be Marines landing on the beach to go around an enemy force, or in this case, paratroopers dropping behind enemy lines. The second huge factor that was playing towards the Russian military forces was communication clutter. Communication clutter is when too much information is sent to the top, obscuring the leader's ability to truly see who's in need. In the initial days of the invasion, Russia invaded from several points, as you can see on the left. And the Ukrainian commanders in all those regions were likely asking for support. And the top three things any commander wants in these type of situations is manpower, material, and air support. The Ukrainian general there in Kyiv likely had some very difficult decisions to make. He likely thought that the defenses in the south, the choke points, and the ability to funnel the Russian military into a very small corridor would likely lead to victory in the south, and instead focused on all the other areas. Instead, what happened was the Russian military paradropped several contingents of troopers behind the two defensive areas, as shown on the right here, and were able to flank the defending Ukrainian troops and subsequently take over those positions, which allowed the mechanized infantry of the 22nd Army to cross those two land bridges relatively unmolested. After which, the mechanized army split into two separate divisions, listed here as Red Division and Gold Division. The Gold Division was sent to the Novakovka Dam, which is an electrical dam that powers the entire region of Kherson Oblast. And the Red Army was sent to the city of Kherson, the capital of Kherson Oblast. While the Gold Army made excellent strides, took the Novakovka Dam, and went on to their secondary objectives of taking either side of the Dnieper River, the Red Army ran into several problems when they tried to cross the Amanovsky Bridge, also known as the Kherson Bridge. The Ukrainian military was able to do a holding action by placing their artillery on the Kherson side of the river, firing over the bridge as a suppressive action, as well as have several other up-armored vehicles on the bridge, stopping any charge across. So the question I had when I did this case study was, why didn't they just do the exact same thing? Use communication clutter and irregular flanking to then defeat this yet again. It came down to two things. First, paratrooper reloading. Second, the lack of surprise and communication clutter. By this point, it had been 3 or 4 days into the war. And so the Ukrainian military was not surprised anymore. They were able to get the supplies and manpower they needed to wherever they needed it. And this was one of those fronts. The second was paratrooper reloading. So the paratroopers who dropped and took the 2 land bridges, their commander had a choice. Either A, they could go with their normal paratrooper training and jump across using 2 different methods, or very likely, the Russian commander on the ground just attached his unit to the mechanized infantry. So the first option of going back and paratrooper reloading, so to speak, could have been either A, they could have reloaded onto helicopters and flown across. And they likely didn't do this because in the beginning of the invasion, helicopters were being shot out of the sky willy-nilly. Or they could have reloaded back into planes like the initial assault. This would have took a bit of time. They would have had to get back onto some other mechanized land vehicles, go back to Crimea to get on another plane to do it again. This would have took time and would have took momentum away from the Russian military. So instead, they pushed toward the Kherson Bridge and were slowed and halted. This action took 7 to 10 days, at which point the Red Army commander decided to send troops all the way around. This map doesn't do it justice. Instead of going through the Oleshki Sands National Nature Park, they actually had to go south, back down the highway, up to the Gold Highway, go over the Novokova Dam, and then go across. And then, as you can see, yet another smaller river was there to impede them. By the time that flanking action got there, the Ukrainian military had already pulled back to the Mile Live line, and several units were sent to Kherson for house-to-house fighting, creating an effective holding action and allowing the Ukrainian military to create a staunch defense at the Mile Live line, which was able to then push back towards Kherson to this day. At this point, I'd usually ask for questions, but instead, I'll go ahead and point out some of the major geographical features that are where the battle lines are made. In the east, we have the Oskil River. This is where, after the breakout of Kharkiv, the Ukrainian military pushed and then defended. The Dnieper River to the southwest. Yes, the Russian military was able to take Kherson and get across the river, but they're continually hampered by the Dnieper River again. The same bridge they had trouble getting across is now damaged, and it is hard to get manpower, logistics, everything above across to support their troops. So they're steadily losing land in the south. East to the Dnieper River is where the battle lines are drawn as well. The Konka River, which is the southern line there, effectively hasn't moved too much because both sides have dug in on either side of it. In between, there are hilly regions and even cliffs to where an army can subsequently dig in and defend easily. Some of my predictions for the future of this war is winter will assist the Ukrainians. The current casualty report that I last seen was around 95,000, and it could be much, much more. That is 95,000 troops worth of gear that has been lost. Putin has drawn up 300,000 additional troops who are already having material shortages. One of the big shortages, and one that's going to play the biggest factor, is winter gear. Without winter gear, the troops that are sent in are going to be degraded and be less effective, therefore helping the Ukrainian military. The second big thing that I would like to point out is that these smaller rivers, these smaller streams, are likely going to freeze over. This can create opportunities for the Ukrainian military. Now, it's still dangerous, as any frozen river crossing can be. These icy shelves can be malformed, and it could be too skinny, you could fall through, And also, the Russian military can simply fire explosives and artillery into the river, breaking up the ice. This is also good, only because any artillery shell and explosive that's used to break up the river is one artillery shell and explosive that isn't used to attack the Ukrainian military. And with that, I will sign off. I'm Andrew Georgeff. Thank you, Professor Hodakevich, and thank you, Kashishka Shokar, and I hope you have a wonderful day.